Every mental state you mistake for laziness, you woke up, you had things to do, and you did none of them. Not because you didn't care, not because you didn't try. But something you can't name made it impossible. And the word that came to mind was lazy. But what if that word was wrong? What if what you've been calling laziness has a completely different name and a completely different cause? In this video, we're going to go through every mental state that gets mistaken for laziness. 8 of them, ranked from the most misunderstood to the most invisible. By the end, you'll know exactly which one you've been living in. But before we start, one thing needs to be clear. Laziness is a choice. It's the deliberate decision to avoid effort when effort is possible. Every state in this video is different. It's not a choice. It's a condition, biological, psychological, or neurological, that makes effort genuinely harder or sometimes impossible. The problem is they look identical from the outside, and too often they look identical to ourselves. So let's break them down, one by one. Mental fatigue. Mental fatigue is not tiredness. It's not fixed by sleep. It's the depletion of your brain's capacity to process, decide, and execute, caused by sustained cognitive load. Long hours of thinking, problem-solving, or emotional work burn through the brain's glucose and dopamine reserves faster than the body can restore them. The result? You sit at your desk, staring at a task that should take 10 minutes, and you can't start, not because you don't want to, because your brain is running on empty, and starting requires a resource you've already spent. People with mental fatigue are often the most dedicated workers. They're not lazy, they're depleted. The difference: laziness feels comfortable. Mental fatigue feels like trying to run through concrete. ADHD paralysis. ADHD paralysis is one of the most misdiagnosed states in existence, and it affects millions of people who don't even know they have ADHD. Here's what happens. The ADHD brain has a dysregulated dopamine system. It can't generate internal motivation on demand. It needs interest, urgency, novelty, or challenge to activate. When none of those conditions are met, when a task is boring, unclear, or overwhelming, the brain simply doesn't initiate. Not won't. Can't. The person sits frozen. They want to move. They know they should move. But the neurological signal that says go never fires. From the outside, it looks like procrastination. From the inside, it feels like being trapped in a body that refuses to cooperate. ADHD paralysis is not laziness. It's a dopamine regulation failure. Depression flatness. Depression is not sadness. That's the first thing to understand. One of its most disabling symptoms is called psychomotor retardation, a slowing of thought, movement, and motivation that has a direct neurological cause. Reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex. Disrupted serotonin and norepinephrine signaling. The result is what's often called flatness. The person isn't sad, they're numb. Tasks that were once automatic, showering, answering a message, standing up, become decisions that require enormous energy. To everyone else, it looks like they've stopped trying. To them, every small act is a mountain. Depression flatness is not a lack of will. It's a neurochemical state that physically impairs function. Emotional exhaustion. Emotional exhaustion happens when you've spent too long managing other people's emotions or suppressing your own. It's common in caregivers, teachers, therapists, and anyone in a relationship where emotional labor is constant and unreciprocated. The brain treats emotional regulation like a physical resource. It runs out. When it does, even simple decisions feel impossible. Creativity disappears. Initiative disappears. The person goes through the motions but nothing more. From the outside, lazy, disengaged, checked out. From the inside, completely empty. Running on autopilot because there's nothing left to run on. Emotional exhaustion is not laziness. It's the aftermath of giving too much for too long. Dissociation. Dissociation is the brain's emergency exit. When stress, trauma, or overwhelm exceeds what the nervous system can process, the brain partially disconnects from the present moment. You're there, but you're not there. You watch yourself from a distance. Tasks feel unreal. Time moves strangely. In mild forms, called dissociative episodes, people describe feeling foggy, detached, or like they're moving through water. They can't focus, they can't initiate, they lose time, and they often don't realize it's happening. To others, they look zoned out, distracted, unmotivated. The truth is their brain is in a protective state, one that prioritizes survival over productivity. Dissociation is not laziness, it's a trauma response, learned helplessness. Learned helplessness was first documented in psychology experiments, but it plays out in real human lives every day. It develops when a person experiences repeated situations where their actions have no effect on the outcome. They try, it doesn't work. They try again, it still doesn't work. Eventually, the brain learns a new rule: effort is useless. Once that belief is encoded neurologically, not just consciously, the person stops trying. Not because they're lazy, because their nervous system has learned, from direct experience, that trying leads nowhere. This is common in people who grew up in chaotic environments, abusive relationships, or systems that punished initiative. Learned helplessness looks like giving up. It is, in fact, the logical conclusion of a nervous system that learned giving up was the only rational response. Anhedonia. Anhedonia is the inability to feel pleasure from things that used to bring it. It's one of the most isolating experiences a person can have, and one of the least understood. The hobbies you loved don't interest you. The food you used to enjoy tastes like nothing. The people you care about feel distant. Anhedonia is directly linked to dopamine dysfunction. The brain's reward system, the mechanism that says this is worth doing, stops firing reliably. When nothing feels rewarding, nothing feels worth starting. The person doesn't pursue goals, doesn't engage, doesn't initiate. They're not lazy. Their brain has lost access to the signal that makes action feel meaningful. Freeze response. The freeze response is the least talked about of the nervous system's survival modes and the most mistaken for laziness. When the brain perceives a threat it cannot fight or escape, it defaults to freeze. Heart rate drops, muscles lose tone, cognition narrows, the person becomes still, quiet, and unresponsive. In the modern world, threats aren't always physical. They can be a difficult conversation, an overwhelming to-do list, an email you don't know how to answer, a decision with too many variables. The nervous system doesn't distinguish. It reads overwhelm as threat, and it freezes. The person sits on the couch, staring at their phone, unable to start anything. They know they should move. They want to move. Their nervous system has other plans. Freeze is not laziness. It's a survival mechanism misfiring in a world that never stops demanding. 8 states: mental fatigue, ADHD paralysis, depression flatness, emotional exhaustion, dissociation, learned helplessness, anhedonia, the freeze response. None of them are laziness. All of them get called laziness by others and by the people living through them. The word lazy is easy. It assigns blame. It ends the conversation. But it doesn't explain anything, and it doesn't help anyone. If you recognized yourself in one of these states today, that recognition is the first step, not toward fixing everything, just toward calling it what it actually is. Because you can't address what you can't name. If this video gave you something, the next one goes deeper. Every defense mechanism your mind uses to protect you, explained. Subscribe, and I'll see you there.